Okay, and my name is Jameel, and I'm a professional channeler. I channel higher spiritual entities, as spirit guides. And I came into the knowledge a couple of years ago that for each chakra there is a spirit guide, and there's multiple spirit guides, of course, beyond the chakras. So there's 7 chakra spirit guides. And that led me, once I started channeling that information, that led me to learn more about overall consciousness, soul groups, different ET groups, terrestrial non-human groups, animal spirits, soul groups within the animal kingdom. And then that led me to the experience of discovering planetary consciousness. And my thing with channeling, I really enjoy learning about the reptilians, like the reptilians that mean humans good. That's my favorite form of channeling. But there's other terrestrial non-human beings that I channel. There's other forms of consciousness that I channel that are just as good as just as fun as channeling the reptilian energy. But the planetary consciousness is something that's a very strong consciousness, and I've learned how to use planetary consciousness to make things happen and to interact with galactic energy. So for somebody who is not as aware and as awake as I am, they might not be able to make certain things happen within their incarnation because they don't have the connections to the planetary consciousness necessary to do it. All the information you'll ever need is stored in the Akashic records, and you can interact with people. You can interact with the population without even saying a word. Buddhists do it all the time. Buddhists will sit down and meditate for hours and hours and hours and put out good energy into the atmosphere, and other people will pick up on it. Me, myself, I come up with creations of explaining stories to people. Historically, it's been conspiracies, and people would say, Jameel, why were you so interested in conspiracy theories? What does it have to do with now? And I would say, well, if you don't know what happened in the past, you don't know what's going on right now, and you don't know what happened in the future. So through me explaining conspiracies, it was a form of cleansing energy and releasing truth and information about stuff that people did not formally know about more properly. Learning from those experiences, it got me into more traditional channeling. And so large rocks on the planet, like areas where there's large rocks or trees, or areas where there's what do they have out in the desert, like those glaciers. I guess that's the best word, those glaciers in the desert. And you can see in the desert sometimes there's objects that move. There's no explanation for how they move. There's certain areas of the planet that carry certain electromagnetic frequency, and historically these are called ley lines or dragon lines, and a lot of towns and cities are built on them. So I've learned how to use, over time I've learned how to work with the consciousness of my overall planet and to work with the people on that type of level. And so that's been something I've been blessed by. Now, channeling information, I call it psychic downloads. Like, I'll just be sitting here and I'll just get some information and I'll be like, where'd that information come from? I don't know where it came from. It comes from a spirit guide, or it comes from the human group consciousness, or it comes from a non-human consciousness or something. I just get information, and over time I've adapted to it and I've become a professional channeler. And what I do now is I ask for information and I'll meditate on different ET groups. I'll meditate on different consciousness around the earth, and I've been able to actually feel non-human beings energetically interacting with me. And so I know that for a lot of people who don't, if you've never heard of channeling or you're not familiar with the New Age stuff, then it's not going to sound realistic to you. But if you're very open-minded and you're spiritual, and you've been on a spiritual journey, and especially if you're used to the Far Eastern practices, or if you're a conspiracy researcher or alternative researcher, and you're familiar with things like Project Centerlane, which talks about psychoenergetic activity, psychoenergetic ability, Project Centerlane or Project Stargate, those were big government programs that invested millions of dollars in the psychic activity, parapsychology. So there is scientific explanation for what I'm speaking of, which is known as parapsychology, which In parapsychology, the metaparticle or the tachyon particle is the psychic communication signal, and it's known to be faster than the speed of light. So, if you want to get into channeling, and you want a way to explain to your friends, start with parapsychology. If you're not really interested in explaining it to the people around you, and you just want to jump into it, just start meditating and channeling. And psychic activity is very real. Let me explain it a little bit higher now. Okay, so you have the reptilians, and then letting go of that seems to be the most interesting for people. But then you have other groups who are not human, but they still walk around. People have had interactions with these beings, not even known it. I think some of them just want to watch and observe people. Some of them interact with the population a lot of different ways. Some of them are helpful to humans. Some of them might not be so helpful. It depends on. It mostly depends on the energy you give off, where you're at. It's almost like you watch humans interact with animals. Some humans will go into the Serengeti forest, knock out a lion, put a lion under surgery, cure the lion, wake the lion up, and let the lion go on with its business. Some people will go out into the Serengeti or wherever you can find lions, and they'll go out there and poach them and hunt them and put them up, on a wall in their house. Maybe you can say neither one are evil. Is the poacher evil, or is the person who healed the lion necessarily a wonderful person? It gets into semantics, very debatable. But so that's what I do as a channeler. And for most people who channel, they go into a meditative state where they'll just sit there and go like this, and they'll talk, and their voice changes. I get information. It just flows through me. I just get it. It just comes through me. It just comes through me. One of the best things that I do is I use sound. I listened to some of the Tutankhamun horn audios. They went into the Tutankhamun's grave. Or no, Ramses. Ramses the second. Ramses the first. Or was it Tutankhamun? I think it was Tutankhamun. But they went and they took Tutankhamun's horn and they blew it. And I was listening to that. And that the vibrations of Tutankhamun's trumpet, activated genetic memory within me. It woke me up. So genetic memory, I use genetic memory to learn information, different forms of learning information. Then I've learned that what's going on with me on Earth isn't just stuck on the Earth, that through meditation and prayer and communication in the spiritual world, I have connections that are off planet as well. And so I've learned a lot of information through channeling. And so I'm a professional channeler. This is Cosmic Science with Jameel. And I'm going to be getting this more channeling later on. I just want to keep this interview. I just wanted to keep promoting the channel, keep the channel going. Now I have an interview up with M-Dog, and now M-Dog is a friend of mine, and M-Dog wanted me to do a channeling session for him. So I did a channeling session with M-Dog, and this was back in 2015 that I did it, and I look forward to working with people in the future and doing more channeling sessions. All right.